Perfect. Okay, Sci-Fi Express Lane, total expression. I'm going full expression today. I'm expressing myself on what is a hotep and how it relates to Moon Knight and how it relates to like science fiction and talks of Kemet. Okay, so recently I've been talking to people about Moon Knight, and I'm not a hater of Moon Knight. I like the actor. I've seen the first episode. It's cool. Got a little Venom energy where he talks to himself inside, or the two characters talk to each other. But I was telling people that I have a little pushback on the interpretation of Kemetic mythology, right? And when we talk about Kemetic mythology, black people, specifically hoteps like me, love to use Egypt as ours, right? Black people are great because we had kings and queens and we built Egypt, right? And there's no denying that, right? There's no denying that. You can say, oh, you know, the way they portray Egyptians in movies, yes. No, that's not correct. Egyptians painted themselves black. They mummies ended up having melanin on their skin. So it is what it is. And there's other ways to unite and connect them to other black tribes in Egypt, but we ain't even gonna get into all that. It's undeniable. Resistance is futile. Anyway, my resistance to it is how Egypt is interpreted and portrayed is very important to me. Now, mind you, I'm a hotep, meaning I embrace Imhotep as the first multi-genius and an upstanding individual who built the pyramids, created the mathematical equation that came to pi, Pythagorean's theorem. He was the first person to use that before Pythagorean, before there was a Greek civilization. So all of the mathematics that go into the building of the pyramids, Imhotep gets that. There are some central things that I feel are wrong, and I think they're on purpose. First of all, the pyramids are the crowning achievement of the Kemetic civilization. Not the only achievement. Maybe you know there's others that are great, but the crowning one because they are visible for the world to see, and they're undeniable. They've withstood the weathers of time, and they're still there. All right, and their greatness is in their existence, and it's undeniable. They all face the same direction. They all built with the same mathematical equation. It is what it is. There's nothing you can't destroy the pyramids or the Mumirs. I think I'm saying it, the Murs, right? Because I think that's the Egyptian or the Kemetic word for pyramid, right? So we'll say Mur. Anyway, I think that's important. We always talk about accuracy. I can portray Columbus as a hero and a savior to the world if I want to, but then there's got to be satire because that's not true. He was a barbarian. He came, raped, and pillaged like the other conquistadors, right? Because he was a conquistador, all right? So when it comes to portraying Kemetic values, you got to, you can change it and do whatever you want, but it's got to be labeled as a change. You can change the race and the color. We all get sensitive on that. But then as we learn more, we start to learn other things that they're sensitive about. Like to portray a mummified person, calling it the mummy, as an evil person or anything below a higher person in the culture is incorrect. So mummification wasn't a process for everybody. Let's get that correct. They only mummified the royal family in their courts, right? And that is, you had to be a highly celebrated person to get mummified, and they weren't bad people. So I don't even know if Imhotep was mummified, right? I don't even know if he was. So when they come with this mummy is Imhotep, it's because they got a lot of hate for Kemetic culture. They got a lot of hate for the empire that was all along the Nile, right? And still exists, because we just know Egypt as Egypt, but the Kemetic culture extended the whole length of the Nile, which includes parts of Tanzania and Ethiopia. So that's the real civilization. We call it the Nile Valley civilization, and Kemetic people weren't the only culture that existed there, So that's a couple of things, right? And then there's a big difference, and this is another gripe that I have. First of all, you can't mummify Imhotep, and you can't make him a bad guy. Let's clear that up. The next problem I have is, this whole thing about the fear of death. If there was ever a culture on the earth that did not fear death, it was and is the Nile Valley civilization. They believed in the afterlife. The whole process of mummification wasn't for the person to come back here to earth being reincarnated because they didn't want to die. Was so they could take the possessions of this world's experience with them to the next experience. That's for the afterlife, not the reincarnated life. No, they didn't expect to be coming back here. They went through mummification so they could take their energy with them to the next life, right? So now, that's another one. Then the next thing that they have that I have a problem with, and this is all stuff that's rooted in Moon Knight, but it exists in kind of everything about Egypt, okay? Greek civilization plagiarized Kemetic civilization all the way down to the semblance of their gods. The Kemetic gods were expressions of one God. They didn't have gods. They had God with one entity with different expressions. Meaning, I have one body, but I have a hand. I have an arm. I have a head. The head has a mouth. The ears. There's feet. There's a penis, right? All of those things are parts of the same body. They do and act in unison. The penis doesn't fight the feet. The eyes and ears don't gang up on the mouth. The head doesn't fight the shoulders. When you see the Egyptian or the Nile Valley expression on film and in magazines and stuff, a lot of times you'll see them having, especially things like Jupiter ascending, which is stupid. You'll see the god deities or the god expressions fighting each other, plotting each other. That is stupid. And mind you, there's nothing wrong with having those theologies in your story, but don't call them Egypt. Don't call them Nile Valley. That's incorrect. unless you're going to do fantasy. I think what the problem is the comedic view on life and things is so hard for Christian culture raised people to think that they just apply their Christian and Western values on the comedic values. Now, I can be a conspiracy theorist and say, hey, they don't want the black culture to look great. And that's part true. But I don't even think they think one God is great. I think some people, because even black people do it, expressing gods in the Nile Valley as fighting each other, they don't see it as a problem. So I don't think that it's pure racist hate. I think it's mostly ignorance. And I say that because I'm learning more and more about the Nile Valley myself. And it might have been a time where, my stuff, what I'm saying right now, might be ignorant based on what I learned in the future. But it ain't that ignorant, and it ain't deliberately ignorant, and it embraces its ignorance. So when I make a comment, I already know that I'm going to learn something in the future that may correct what I'm saying or explain it better. But I'm not casting a white person to play a brown-skinned black person. That's not happening. So anyway, those are some of my things, and Moon Knight plays a lot on that. It's just easier if he was Greek, or if he was a fictitious African culture, because if there was any culture that has given every one of their symbols meanings, the Nile Valley did that. So you don't just throw a scarab weapon at somebody. It's got a scarab on there because it's got a reason to have a scarab on there, and the scarab has a purpose for being on there. So it's like saying, here, I'm throwing this tiger's claw to you. The tiger has a claw, and they use it a certain way, and you couldn't throw a dog claw the same way you throw a tiger's claw, or a shark claw. There's no such thing. So when you see these weapons, and you see everything with symbols on it, it's like it's a label, as opposed to just a decorative. Oh, let's put a scarab on this. Let's put a beetle on this. No, they have a reason for it. It symbolizes something in its use or its energy that is similar to what the beetle's energy and stuff was. And so sometimes to discover all of that, you have to know all about the animal or the individual, whatever has the symbols being used. And then you have to also understand what the symbol is on and the use of it to find the conversation that it's having or why they have it on there. Anyway, I just wanted to say that I think, the true comedic culture mythology is a beautiful thing, and it's a beautiful thing in certain storylines, probably all storylines, right? And it's not limited. But what the problem is, a lot of people don't know how to write in that mythology, and it's just easier for them to write in a Western mythology. And that's it. That's really all I wanted to do, was kind of share my 2 cents on this. What is the issue I have with Moon Knight, and a little bit on my reason why people are so tight, specifically me and maybe other hoteps, on the portrayal of Nile Valley and its cultures. All right, that's it. I'm out of here. I don't believe I did 15 minutes, but it turned out to be 15 minutes. I've been trying to talk slower and clearer because I got Spanish speaking and second language people listening to what I say. So I want to be mindful of them and allow them to understand as much as they can. Anyway, like, share, subscribe. Let's get them subscriptions up. When I hit 1,000, whenever that happens, I'll be able to go live if I ever decide to go live. All right. Peace.